I'm
Woohoo!
now they make an announcement. I'm going to actually record this. I didn't want to interrupt.
No worries. No worries.
It's number 2. Forgot to press record. Okay, so yeah, no, those are some really good points. We are all suffering from collective trauma, but also collective consciousness, and that's a good point. And I mean, you can use those words, but I just mean positive growth, positive spiritual outlooks, even whatever religion we've dived into a little bit. I've seen a lot of people like reinvestigate what that even means. What does politics even mean? People are digging deeper into their critical thinking skills, and adults too, not just kids, but kids are naturally out of the box thinkers, especially as they're growing and shifting in the years, which is such a beautiful thing. But not only their minds are opening up, they're not just, I feel like so many people lump people in boxes, like teens are all this way, or preteens are all this way. They all play video games, but why is that? Let's investigate. If there is some truth to the video games or whatever it may be, why is that? Where's our part to play in that, And I'm not saying anything is wrong with video games, but there are different things that at different stages of our life that can become a distraction. So for a kid, it might be video games. For me, it might be social media. I'm on too much. I'm watching too much CNN. For my grandfather, watches too much CNN. When you're one-sided on any issue, where you're just consumed with it, that can be toxic. And I feel like that's what was happening to all of us. We were all consumed with the corona, first it was corona, then it was COVID-19, and, then it was take the test and, a swab in your nose, which was weird because we never had to get tested that way before. It was always, your throat. I remember for a sore throat, it was like they stuck a thing down. So even that was new and people were uncomfortable with it. And then vaccines, so when does it stop? And you made a good point by saying, well, it's not over. There's going to be more. But I feel like there's another generation out there, more of the baby boomer generation, saying, oh, it's going to be over next week. And then they say, oh, it's going to be over next month. Why are you guys all worried about it? And, I'm here fighting for the freedom of the kids to get the masks off their faces.
Me too.
Right? And people are, and I'm out there rallying, and they're like, why? People will say, why do you bother? Why, they're gonna lift that. I'm like, are they really? Is that what's going on? Because I don't hear that on the news. I hear the Delta variant. And I'm sorry, I could ramble.
No, but I mean, you asked a really good question. When is this going to stop? Yeah. This is going to stop when we as John Q. Public, as the people, stop acquiescing to these ridiculous commands. It's going to stop when we say it stops, right? It's going to stop when our heart tells us this is ridiculous. There is no sense in this. This is stopping because I'm no longer giving you my consent. I do not consent to this kind of demands anymore. You don't have the right to tell me to wear a mask. You don't have the right to tell me you're going to give me a shot that I don't want. You don't have the right to tell me that you're going to stick a swab up my nose. No, this is going to stop now. And that's what we need to do. We need to go inside, check in with our hearts and figure out what our truth is, and stop allowing these ridiculous commands to be a part of our life.
Yes. Ooh, I love it. And just today, I was so invigorated with life when I was out at a rally, just seeing all different age groups from little tiny, I think I was a 5-year-old all the way. And there was some preteens, teens, and then older teens, and I would say college. I mean, every single age gap was there, and then adults, and even a couple elderly folks were out there with their signs, and people were beeping, and we were, because I'm part of the coalition Unmask Our Kids, and it's all over. I think it started in DC, but now it's in Connecticut, and we're everywhere. So we're not going to stop. And I just think it's really important. At first, I just wanted to run away from it all and just homeschool and live in my little isolated bubble with my community. But I really felt a strong calling not to do that right away, to stick with it. I mean, my daughter did stay in school, you know, and I like felt guilty about it, like with the math and everything. But you know what? We got through it. It was 1 year and we're done. Like I told her, we're not doing math next year. So either she's not going to wear a mask or we're just going to pull her out. But we are going to fight this fight for the teachers. I'm also a teacher. I was a teacher. Not sure what I'm doing these days, but I'm an educator. I love education. I love learning. I love teaching. But things are going to have to change big time. And people are going to have to make big decisions. And it might mean leaving your job. It might mean doing something different. And that's hard. I don't know about you, but I've had some polls in different directions that have been very almost earth shaking. Like, wow, you really will have to kind of make a shift that could be, you know, scary, I guess, you know, a lot of nerves getting involved.
Well, there's a point where we have to decide, are we going to step into our power? And I know you speak very passionately about where power comes from with your faith. And I just, you know, I'm looking towards people of faith like you to be able to use that inner strength and say, look, this does not resonate with me. I have the power and strength within me to say no. The consequences, let them fall where they do, right? I know that I'm in the right, and this is not in alignment with what I believe. And that's important right now, especially if you're going to buy the whole story of the COVID numbers with the percentages of children that are infected and you know, the numbers of deaths, they're minuscule. They're not even existent. And we're causing more problems with children by putting masks on them from a biological perspective, just by breathing in bacteria, and then from an emotional, psychological perspective, meaning that they are basically, in essence, being bound and gagged, right? And then also look at the perspective of you know, limiting their air supply. That is not great for brain development anyway. So I would say, no, there is no risk to children based on, you know, the CDC and WHO. Why are we abusing our children? And why, as parents, are we allowing this to happen?
Right.
Yeah, I'm passionate.
Yeah, like, no, this is good. This is good. And we as parents felt like the very first year, everything happened so fast. It was like so hard to make a difference or make an impact. So we're recovering from guilt, honestly. Like, I'm like, I can't believe I let it go on so, you know, but at the same time, you know, we had homemade masks and we would let her poke her nose out and the teacher didn't care. You know, there was stuff going on in the down low. You know, they had their nose, but still, like, that's like craziness. Now I look back at it and I'm like, why did we do that? But what I like that you said too is like people are waking up to this. Like you said, they were spending time, you're forced to spend time with your family. So you get on each other's nerves. There's the good, the bad, and the ugly, but the good is super good, you know? And so I just think it's interesting where we're going with this, because it's like the more they knock us down, the stronger we get, sort of thing. It's like, all right, you can keep throwing punches, but ultimately we win, you know?
I hope so. Yeah. I mean, I hope this collective strength, we have the numbers, right? The collective strength. Yeah. Parents need to pull in on that strength, which is inside of us, tap into it and say, I'm not doing this anymore. I am not putting my children at risk. And yes, it's difficult to be in company with your family 24/7. I know I did it for 12 years. I traveled with my son 24/7 for 12 years without a break. Like, can you imagine? so like, I get that, but it's about that connectivity. It's about, you know, really facilitating your your core family values and being able to live it. And let's face it, as parents, my son is now 22 and it blows me away. It's gone so fast, but I'm glad I had this time together. We forget how precious those years are. So look at this as a gift. You can spend these precious years with them and give them the foundation of knowing that they come from a family that has these really strong core values, that believes in health and love and connectivity and faith, or whatever those core values are for your family. Let them live that. That's going to set them up for life.
What a beautiful, beautiful depiction of life and love. Just everything you resonate is just so beautiful, Lainie. Like, I just see you as like such a beacon of light for these kids and the moms. And I'd like to hear a little bit more about the program that you're running, particularly.
Yeah, I mean,
tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. The work that I do is I work with teens. Teens are my passion in my heart. I love working with teens. I'm like their crazy auntie, Lainie. You know, that's the auntie that will be there and listen without judgment. The programs that I run, I've developed a whole set of tools that really facilitate and empower them to do some of the internal work, to be able to do self-inquiry and understand, what are my core values? What are the core values that I wish to live? Where am I now? Where is the gap? What do I need to do to be able to create the empowerment that I want to be in my life, and to have dialogues around things like emotional intelligence, like limiting beliefs, like emotions, shadows, you know, how everything is connected. So I run for teens, I run a 12-week program that is partially learning these tools, partially group coaching and partially workshopping, and then filled with these challenges. Wow. And it's a really intimate journey. So I do that for teens for 12 weeks. And then I do an 8-week program for the younger teens and tweens, because you did mention the younger ones. You know, it's sort of, and one of the things that you mentioned was discernment and logical thinking and learning how to, you know, question things, right? Kids are really good at doing that until we institutionalize it. Yeah. And then we school them out of like, but why? Well, I give them the tools to get back into that intrinsic curiosity that's inside of them that we're all born with. So
I would label that as unschooling, right? That's part of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yes and no. I mean, the courses that I teach, I'm an unschooling mom, first of all. So the tools that I've created over the, you know, past 20 years have been from that philosophy, and the way that I facilitate is based on partnership, which is really what unschooling is about. It's about the family living in partnership and learning together, right? It's not about one person having an agenda and saying, you must learn this. But the teens or tweens that come into my courses are there because they want to learn this stuff, and I partner with them, which means I let go of the judgment and the expectation, and I walk side by side with them instead of in front of them telling them what to do, which is a very different dynamic. So that's why teens light up to me and we connect. And the skills that I'm giving them are tools that I've created based on my own healing of past traumas, right? So I understand trauma. I understand what it means to have early childhood programming that is, you know, turns into habitual thinking that, you know, can be limiting the way that a human being walks through the planet, because they think things about themselves that maybe served them when they were 3, but when they're 15, it doesn't serve them. And if the only output that they have in order to know who they are is the superficial video games or social media or what they see on television, and they've got no tools to go inward, then you're looking at a very empty teenager moving into becoming a very empty adult. And so, with the tools of empowerment and self-inquiry, and that goes into the heart, the spirit, the psyche, understanding the biology, all that stuff is empowering. So that's what I do. I give teens and tweens, I walk side by side with them, and I give them the tools to empower them. But I'm also, on the flip side, an advocate for alternative education for obvious reasons. So get your kids out of school. And, yeah.
So peer, when you're speaking about this, the first thing that came to my mind was like peer mediation or like peer mentoring programs. Like, I'm just imagining your preteens and your teens, like as your teens get older or like sort of wean out of the program. I mean, maybe you don't do this, but I could just see keeping them around. Can you go into like what you actually do with them? Like, would you keep the older ones around to help the younger ones? Okay, I could see that working and being so successful, just because I know peer-to-peer really does have an impact.
Totally. And so I've only been working online with teens for the last year and a half, but I've been working with teens in person, taking them on international world schooling retreats that were immersive learning experiences for 8 years before that. So it was 10 years working with teens. And the programs that I ran in countries around the world for these month-long immersive, like really intense unschooling, world schooling retreats, we would always bring back volunteers, and the volunteers are then the co-facilitators, which is like peer-to-peer support. And so I've taken that spirit of that into the coaching or mentoring program. And so I have several teens that have gone through my courses that I invite to come back and take the course again as a volunteer or a mentor or a peer mentor. And it doesn't mean that anybody is done. It's not like we turn on the oven to bake a cake and then the cake's done. Like, we're all in progress. We're always in progress. And every time you do the exercises or the challenges, you get more out of it, and you can go deeper and you get to know self even more. I've got one teen who I love all the teens, right? But one who has been, she took the course, and now she's on her 4th round of taking the course as the peer mentor. And she does all the work, and she's very vocal about like, okay, here's what I'm discovering. I discovered this 2 classes ago, but I went deeper, and it's really normalizing talking about the internal process. And it's creating safe spaces where it's okay to do that. And by her showing others that she's comfortable going in and then communicating about it, it normalizes that experience. And then the teens that are just doing it for the first time don't feel so crazy. They don't feel so alone. They don't feel like they're so awkward. Like, oh, you had this doubt too, or you felt that about yourself, or your self-esteem was down here too with that situation. Oh, I guess I'm not alone.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. You don't have to go to, a mental ward or a support group necessarily to get these fundamentals everybody needs. I've been trying to, tell people that for a while. Like, why don't we just get these kids out of, these systems and just get them together with real people, have real discussions before they end up in some sort of support group or so. Not like there's anything wrong with support groups. Let me just put that out. Support groups are great,
right.
Much needed. But normalize it. I love it. Normalizing. I don't like this term, this is the new normal, that narrative. Are you kidding me? This is not the new normal, and I do not accept this as normal. What we went through last 18 months was hell. Let's move to a higher frequency and get with the program, people. Like, step up, take your masks off, and
Take your
really
masks off.
breathe in the fresh air and share the truth, because I think people know in their heart, like, something's not right.
And tapping into that, again, that's what I said, tapping into that strength. If you know this is not right, practicing the words, I do not consent. And those are words that I work with teens also. I do not consent. When you do not consent, you do not have to do something. You do not have to allow somebody to touch your body. You do not have to allow somebody to tell you what to do with your body. Parents need to model this behavior to their children. If you don't want to wear a mask, you say, I do not consent, and your children are going to see your actions and recognize that their body is their own too, and their thoughts are their own, and that their beliefs are their own too.
We went through that process with our daughter, our 6-year-old, after I told you I'm still healing from the cult, so don't trigger me.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. No, really. But, I think it's good because that I went through it, and now I could explain how we got out of it. So we told our daughter, we're like, okay, and the whole time we're like this, the whole pandemic, we were like, there's not really, we basically told her, you don't have to worry about this. You're not going to get any disease. Like, she was never afraid of it. And because I was lucky not to be afraid of it. I don't know. I just had that luck. Luckily, I had an internal strength, and I was never really that afraid. Knock on wood, like, I'm not saying I wouldn't in the future be afraid of a disease if it was really close, but I just never had that like super fear of it. I thought it was kind of silly that everyone was walking around in masks, but I did comply. I did. And I went, I go to the store, get used to I made my own masks, and I have my own homemade masks. I peek my nose through half the time anyway, get in and out as fast as I can. But, I didn't feel the need to like stand up. But now that what happened to me is I had a breakdown. I went into Home Depot and I saw the adults with no mask and the kids with masks. I literally had a freak out in Home Depot. I was like, because I wasn't watching the news. I didn't know about Delta variant. I didn't know about, what was the other thing they were saying? If your kids me and my daughter decided she doesn't want to wear a mask anymore. So I said, okay, you don't have to. And it just sort of happened naturally where like we were going into stores not wearing masks. But then there was like something happened, I guess it was last month, where I guess the vaccinated people don't have to wear a mask. And then the unvaccinated people have to wear a mask technically. But like, I was going in the store and I'm unvaccinated. I was like just going in and not wearing my mask, and my daughter was not wearing her mask. But I guess the trend is you're supposed to, and the rules say you have to like wear a mask or put a mask on your kid, and then you don't have to wear a mask. To me, that's like such a wrong mentality. What you're telling that child is that they are unpure, that they are sick. And that is just deranged. I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone. I was literally like, what are these people doing masking their kids? And this is no condemnation to anybody that masked their kids. Okay. I did it too. I get it. But I just felt almost like traumatized by that experience, because it was so weird to me to see, like, because my friends in my neighborhood and stuff, we just decided we're just not going to mask our kids anymore because it doesn't make sense, because it's summertime and they're out of the school and everything's so, I don't know, we just sort of just decided, I guess, or we actually have free will, believe it or not. But yeah, summer came and we were like done with the mask. We just did our normal business. But anyways, I could go on and on, but it was scarring to me to see that clear, distinct separation that parents would actually do that. And I'm not saying that there's anything, it's just I don't understand where you could have so much fear. I don't know. I just want to like pray for anybody that I'm a prayer. So this is what helps me. So I just pray if anyone's watching this and you're just experiencing fear or anxiety about the COVID or about wearing masks or not wearing masks or vaccines, I just pray that be removed from you and just be filled with peace and the love of Christ. God is with us. God is over all of us. God is one. And that just helps me to pray. So I know you're not always praying, but I love to pray when
it's fine. It's totally fine.
It's not like I'm against any person. It's like when I see it, it just really plays with my emotions.
Well, here's the thing. If you know in your heart, this is not your truth, then do not comply. Because by acquiescing to demands that are not in alignment with you, I'm going to say it again, it's the third time I'm saying it, do not comply, do not consent, do not comply. If you believe that that's the only way to stay safe, then that is something that's true to you. And there are many different ways of seeing this whole thing. I would also recommend that people start digging into some of these really powerful mask studies.
Yeah.
They show that it does not change transmission. The fibers of masks are too large to block anything. It's like they are by wearing a mask, you're virtue signaling. And that to me means you're praying to another God. Like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to comply to something that is simply not in alignment. And you can have faith in and utilize science at the same time too. The problem is the media is lying to you about what the science is actually saying.
Right.
So
and the studies are out there, and I've tried posting on social media, but
it'll get erased.
My posts get called
I know.
COVID violation, and I'm not even sending. I sent one post that was just about how simply wearing a mask is toxic for children.
It is.
And it was a legit article, like a totally legit site. It was like a mainstream site. I can't tell you exactly what it was, but it got flagged. And I'm like,
so I don't know. Why do you think this is happening? This is happening because they don't want people to dissent. They don't want you or all of us to be in our power. So the answers are within you. Check in and do not comply, do not consent if it's not true to you, right? You've heard the term cognitive dissonance. That's when we think something, but we know what we're thinking is not correct, and we get this really weird feeling, right? So this is cognitive dissonance, and this is emotional and spiritual dissonance too. So step into your power. You know where your power is.
Right. Amen.
I'm going to be like a cheerleader in the background.
Preach that cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
Oh, you're like my brain sister. I love it. You could probably get into talking about the amygdala and tell me the insides out. And
I can.
Well, actually, I'd love to ask you some questions about the brain. I love the brain. I do too. I to study psychology, but I could use a little refresher. The amygdala, that is the fight or flight part of the brain.
Yeah, so that's at the brain stem. And a lot of people call that the reptilian brain. If you don't want to get into the actual parts, the reptilian part of the brain is the part of the brain that does control fight, flight, or freeze. And I want to tell you something about fight, flight, or freeze and how it relates to this collective trauma that we're all experiencing.
Something there. Go ahead. Yeah.
So if you think of there's an amazing researcher, psychologist, neuropsychologist named Daniel Siegel. I've got his book right here.
Oh.
This is the one, he's written many books, several about attachment, but this one is about the teen. Oh. And since I work with teens, the teenage brain is called Brainstorm, the Power and Purpose of the Teenage Brain. But he talks about how at the brain stem, you've got the amygdala, and he uses what he calls a hand model. And the rest of the brain sits here and it's basically closed, right? So if you look at your hand and it's closed, this is the part of the brain that does the feeling. This is the part of the brain that processes emotion and makes meaning. But when our fight, flight, or freeze comes online and becomes the active dominant, here's the brainstem, the nervous system, the rest of this goes offline. So now we can't take the meaning, which is the emotions, the meaning, and connect it to what's happening now. And this becomes the dominant. So we're going to go into survival mode. So the hand models is he says it's a handy model. It's a hand model, right? So the rest of the brain is here. If it goes offline, right? Now we're in fight, flight, or freeze. And fight, flight, or freeze is designed to keep us safe. It's the oldest biological system in our body, in our brain. It will determine whether or not a bear is coming, if you need to run, if you need to fight. Hopefully you won't fight a bear, or freeze, play dead. And it instead of doing the processing of emotions and consequences and story and memories, which we all have stored everywhere else, that would take too long to react and we'd be dead if there was a bear there. So this is meant to keep us safe. So when we're in this mode, we are really functioning on primitive qualities, right? Okay. The other thing is, this is only meant to come online in emergencies. Right. But because we've had a collective trauma that, again, in the beginning, remember I said it starts, then it stops, then it starts, then it stops, that this part of our brain, the amygdala, has become overreactive. And when this part becomes overreactive, we're no longer doing the reasoning, the feelings, the meaning, and all the other stuff that the other part of the brain is supposed to help us process to make decisions. And now we're suggestible. Right? We're suggestible because we're not reasoning, we're not making meaning. So when from the biological perspective of making meaning of what's going on, if say a news media or Facebook,
just for example,
doesn't want us to see a bit of reasoning, right? A bit of reasoning that you just gave. You posted probably a peer study, right, that said that masks are not good for children, and here's the reasons why, and here's what we've studied, right? Okay, so you remove that, we go back into fight, flight, or freeze, right? Fight, flight, or freeze, and then we're suggestible because we're not seeing or hearing rational, reasonable things that will help us make decisions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, wow. There's so much there, and I wanted to ask, but so that is the pineal gland part of that was one of my questions. Was the pineal gland in?
I don't think so.
Or that's totally different. Okay.
I don't think that's part of it.
Okay. That was okay. Let me then. Okay.
that controls something totally different.
Okay, because I thought the pineal gland was connected to the amygdala, but
maybe I don't know. I'm not a neuroscientist.
Maybe, but okay. So there's something. I just think that I've heard something down the pipeline probably. About the pineal gland and also about compliance. So I'll have to look into that more.
So the pineal gland.
Am I saying it wrong? Maybe I'm saying it wrong. The
pineal. No, I think it's pineal gland, but I know that many are talking about it becoming calcified. And I think that's the spot where your third eye is. I think the connection between the pineal gland and awakening, right, is less about fight, flight, or freeze, more about like sort of third eye spiritual awakening and see, but I think it's a different system.
So, you know what though, that links into my next question. My next question was about faith, because you were saying that when you're in that fight or flight, and first thing I thought about was a kind of like a tangible experience. I just recently, believe it or not, broke my my elbow.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like if you could see this, you can't see it, but this was so badly bruised, just like a few weeks ago. And it was because I thought I had sprained it, right? But I found out the other day I actually have a small fracture of my elbow. I fell in, where you put your arm down and you fall and it gets all jammed up. I put my arm down the wrong way, fell right on my arm, and I guess all my weight So it was a nasty fall. But I remember like the pain. The pain was so intense. It was very dull. It was a dull, aching, but very strong pain. Because I remember I also scraped my knee and it was bleeding and I didn't even feel that. So I remember it was mostly here, right? So in that moment, like I feel like I almost had like a freeze, like a fight or flight. I think something happened where I felt that immediate, like almost like fear, panic, like couldn't move. It's scary, right? So I feel like that was probably triggered for me. And then for me in this experience, I felt this very, very intense power of healing love, right? Because, me praying and I felt like God was there, whoa, God, like stronger than usual. And it was just really powerful for me personally. The only reason I share that is because it really gave me hope. It was like, okay, this isn't, now I know people have been through worse than a broken arm, but this is just a tangible experience. And it was recent. It was just last month that this happened. And it really changed my perspective on the whole thing. And even though I was in the pain, I was also feeling love at the same time. And granted, some of this is maybe endorphins or whatever it is, or adrenaline, but I was also feeling the presence of God. And I don't want to minimize that because a lot of people say, oh, it's just your brain. I'm like, no, but there was something else, So if people have faith, let them have their faith, because I know like, one of these things about the media or science is they want to like compete with it. Like it's not the enemy, it's there to help us, God is there. If you believe in God or, whatever you believe in, I'm not telling you what to believe in, but if you believe it, that, something doesn't come from nothing and, the eternal universe, collective conscious, whatever it may be, but that God is the one that is above all this darkness. For me, that helped. And even in that moment of my fear, I knew I'd be okay. Yeah. And it wasn't science that saved me. It wasn't my knowledge of the pineal gland. You know what I mean? So it was that faith. It just like warms my heart. And we all have it. We all have some level of faith.
Totally.
We all do. We all believe in something. And so what are you going to choose to believe in? Right? You want to believe that disease is going to take over your whole life and change your whole world? Or do you want to believe that you are healed and whole and beautiful, made in the image of God, and keep it simple, enjoy your life?
Yeah, I mean, you just said, if you want to believe that you're healed. So what happens when you become healed? There is a scientific, biological, chemical process that changes in your body. So I don't think that science and faith are against each other. I think what you just described was God entering you, and the chemical reaction in your body was the effect of that experience. So they're not, against each other. They're hand in hand with each other. So if you need science to explain it, use science. If you need God to explain it, use God. It doesn't matter. But the thing about it is, what you know. Right? You know what you know. And that is that place of knowing, whether it comes from faith, science, or biology, it doesn't matter in my mind. You know what you know, and you know what is right for you, and you know what your values are, and you know what your experiences are. That goes back to compliance and consent.
And you're empowering people.
Yeah.
That inner truth, that inner knowing.
Totally.
Inner motivation too. Really what it comes down to is inner motivation instead of all this external, because we're so used to it. Ring a bell and I'll salivate, right? And
turn off the TV.
Yeah. Turn it off.
Stop ringing the bells.
Right. We do it to ourselves, don't we?
We do. You know why we do it to ourselves? It goes back to the work that I do with the teens. If you grow up with only being focused on the shell, right? The shell, the beauty, the outer beauty, the fashion, the image, right? That's what our culture focuses on. If you are only focused on the shell and have no experience going inward, whether it's through self-inquiry or religious belief or anything that is internal, right? If you don't have that experience, then yeah, the shell is going to be what's important, right? The image, the outer world.
Protecting it, yeah.
The inner world is just as important. So whatever you can do to cultivate health and growth and support of the inner world, do it. Do it. That's where you're going to find the strength to say, I do not consent.
And I know we're already at what, an hour and 10?
Oh my God. Yeah.
But this is so good. I was going to say my daughter and I have been, really helping each other, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. And I think that like in this society, it's sort of like, oh no, you teach your kid, they don't teach, but my daughter teaches me a lot. And I think that's one thing I'm learning in my, the small amount of homeschooling I have done has been, my family knows I do a lot of stuff with her. I'm kind of obsessed with like teaching her some stuff. So about the outside world, we raise tadpoles, watch them turn into frogs.
I love that. And you shared the pictures.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
But she taught me, like, cause I was starting to get into this routine of like habitual, not so good eating and just not really caring, because I was getting like interested in other things, because I'm a very heady person. And I was getting to this point where I was like, oh, I just can't be bothered with food. I just give me anything. You know what I mean? And so I got into that way because I was into studying. I didn't really care to cook. She said something about, I think it was lasagna. I miss you when you made lasagna. And it touched my heart, and it reminded me, yeah, that was good when I was doing stuff like that. Maybe I should. And it was really funny. We made a cake together, and it was funny. Like, I was trying so hard to make this perfect cake. It was a double layer icing cake with like candy in the middle. It came out terrible. It tasted great. It looked like, it was terrible, like the worst. And I was crying, and I was like mad at myself. I was like all hormonal, and like my my daughter was like, what's the matter, Mom? It tastes great. But you should see this. It was like, because you get those cookbooks and it looks so nice. And I tried putting the dressing, the stuff on it, just it was.
I've made scrambled cake before. It's like scrambled eggs. It's scrambled
exactly
cake.
What it was. I was trying to get it out of the pan. You're supposed to stack it on top of the other.
Yeah, right.
I'm like,
try baking in altitude. I'm in altitude right now. It's different.
Yeah, so I'm not really I wasn't that into cooking, but I wasn't even giving myself a chance. I had that failure. Then I had a success later with some chicken, just cooking up some chicken. But the point of it all is like, I was ready to write off cooking altogether, make more money, hire a chef. I don't care. I'll do anything so I don't have to cook. But now I feel like, for me, it's the Lord in me, it's God in me, like telling me, no, you need to get back into cooking. You don't need to try to make more money to hire a cook.
Maybe it's God coming through your daughter, showing you that it's okay to fail. And how beautiful is it to be in progress like that? Like, again, I'm an unschooling parent, so I take the path of partnership parenting, which is very different, right, than most people approach parenting from.
Well, but attachment there. I was an attachment mom.
Same.
Yeah, she's 6 and she still sleeps with us. So
yeah, of course, that was my son too.
Yeah, it's like if she has a choice, but she ends up so. We like to cuddle. We're a cuddly family.
There you go.
Bedtimes are not normal in our family either. Like, we don't, like, sometimes I get back into that religious mind or school mindset where, like, I don't know if I should tell a parent that I keep my daughter up till 10 or sometimes 11. And then,
well, here's the thing. If this is a whole nother conversation, and I could talk to you about raising children in partnership, because when you decide not to live with arbitrary rules like bedtimes, right, you're allowing your child's natural, biological, spiritual, emotional self-regulation process to come online. They'll know when they're tired. They will have the safety of attachment to know that they're not missing out on anything, that it's safe to go to sleep. They will be able to self-regulate, right? And when we artificially tell kids that you must do this at this time, now is bedtime, now is this, now is that, now is this, and you know, if we haven't
working, it didn't seem to be. I mean, that's what I read about in all the books. It says, do this, do this, do this.
Don't do that. I'll write a book that says, don't do that.
Yeah. When she was really little, like baby, yeah. But as she grew older, like sometimes we stay up and watch a movie. Sometimes
why not
midnight? You know, like it doesn't. I mean, very rare she'll be able to stay up till that late, till 11 or midnight. But
that's the point.
But sometimes,
trust her.
You know, sometimes I just let her play. If Daddy and I have to be on the computer, you know, I used to feel guilty about that too. Like, oh, I'm staring at a screen, you know. But she has to experience that as well, because if I'm always hovering, which tends to be my issue, sometimes I'm hovering too much. So
yeah,
back and letting her do her thing is a challenge for me sometimes.
Let me sort of circle back to one of the first things you asked me. It was actually the second question you asked me about kids on computers playing video games. Remember you asked me that?
Yeah.
All right. Well, here's the thing. As parents on computers that are working, we are modeling to them that this device that we are on is acceptable. This device that we're on is an integrated part of our lives. This device that we're on is okay. And then when you turn around to your child and say, you know, I'm working on my computer all day, but you can't be on video games because I'm deeming what you're doing not acceptable. There is a conflict in the understanding. You're modeling to them that it is okay, even though you're going to do different content, right? Different things. So yes, we need to be aware of we are in this generation where we are all online, like, so yeah, video games are part of children's lives. If you can model to your child that you can manage your time and take breaks and make priorities to take breaks and take care of self, they will learn that by you doing that. Yeah, so most people that are scared of video game addiction are really not afraid of the addiction. They're afraid of poor time management from their children. And if you're not modeling time management while you're in front of the computer, they're not going to get it. So that's like a whole nother topic. And that's coming from the perspective of an unschooling mom who's pro video gaming, like I'm all about it. I think it's a great tool, but that'll be a conversation for another time.
Yeah, we could talk about that another time. No, this is
it's a big one, huh?
There's a lot we could say, but yeah, no, we'll stop. We'll have to talk again for sure. Yeah, there's so much there to digest too. So I hope people have some time to think about that and digest. I didn't get any comments. I don't know if you did, or I couldn't.
No, I don't see.
At the same time, so if I missed any comments, I apologize to you guys.
Well, let's let this video, you know, stay live, or you know, be in the Facebook group. And if there are any questions, just put like hashtag question, right? And then that way we'll be notified that there is a question, and I'll come back. Or if there are like different topics that people want me to share about that they're interested in, because we were kind of all over the map tonight. Yeah, but that's okay.
Yeah, but what are your needs? Because really it's about you guys, and what do you need, and what would you like?
I want to support any family that is afraid to step into their power. Right. I won't come at it from a spiritual perspective because I don't have the exact same faith as you. I mean, you know, I'm Jewish, and it's a totally different ball of wax. Yeah. But the essence of living from your center, from your heart, is the same. And I'm all about empowerment, right? And it could look like anything, right? So anything that you want me to talk about, I'm willing to come back and talk to you about.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, no worries.
And positive vibes.
I appreciate it. This is why I'm here. I'm here to support. It's what I do.
Awesome. So we know where to reach out to you. I put your link right below too, so people could click in the comments, or they could click right there in the screen. Yeah, so that sounds good. Plus you are on Facebook still, so we could just message you. Anyone could just message you, right?
Exactly. I'm here for now.
There's
see.
other social media places that we're starting to gather, starting to switch over to Odyssey and Liberty and a few other networks. Discord, you have a setup in Discord.
Yeah, I'm on Discord a lot. I'm thinking
if a teen wanted to find you, they could find you on Discord.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, very good. Yeah. All right. Well, you have a good night.
You too. Thank you, darling. Thank you for the conversation.
Yeah.
And thank you for being open, because like we're talking about it, from a very different perspective than you're living, and
it needs to get talked about. And that's the thing. I feel like I'm sort of like a bridge right now, because I'm sort of in the system and out, in and out. It's been like that my whole life. But it's funny when you were mentioning, I'll just shut up after this, but when you were mentioning about the intrinsic and going deep and reevaluating things, I feel like that's been happening with me, for me, just reading the Bible, because that's what I do, is I do a deconstructing religion, right? So God's been showing me verses I never knew existed, like all people be saved, and just so much freedom and liberty. Like I thought it was all like us versus them, like you either believe in Jesus or you don't, and you're and it's not at all. So different but similar, because it's like I feel like that's been my inner healing, is being able to see through a different lens. Yeah, this has just been so good for me, and I hope it's helping others out there. I'm sure it is. I'm sure you are. So yeah,
thank you. I so appreciate you.
All right, well, have a good one.
You too. Bye.
Bye.